Hi, welcome again to this part in which we will deal with macros, particularly two macros, hash include and hash define. Now, I have told you about const keyword and inline keyword. So we will see how critical they are when you want to replace hash define. Hash include is very simple. Hash include says that I will take this file if I find it in include path. Include path is typically a system environment variable, and it will take that file and paste it verbatim. For example, the first example which I'll give you is I have declared a header file macros.h. Now you should have a header guard. If and if people typically write in capital, macros are in capital. So if it is not defined, then it will be defined. And then you have header. This is called header guard. This makes sure that you do not include the header recursively. So let's see how it looks like when you just include macros.h. So I run my segment terminal and let's go to macros and we go to src. Here we have our macros header and the source file. As I have said previously, you need to run minus capital E to pre-process that file. So I am pre-processing. So now you clearly see the contents are pasted. It clearly says I am including macros.h. It is a hash line macro. It is not included in compilation. All these are hash line. Hash line macro is for debugging purpose, and we typically do not use these hash line macros. And then we have the macros.h header, and then we have the file. Note that none of the macros hash include or hash define are included in this. Even f and if and end if are not in the pre-processed code. Max is replaced by 5 and min is replaced by this. If you care to see the code, max is 5 used here, here and here, and min is a macro here. So we have this output where the macros are replaced. Hash define is straight away replaced and included file is pasted into the C source file. Okay. You see, max is a symbolic constant. It will simply replace that. It will not check for type safety. I commented out stdio.h because if I include that, it will include several other header files and then our pre-processed output will be big. So we build this, and if you want to run this, you can run this. As usual, Eclipse will ask for input. So I gave the input, and you see up to 5 we have this input, and then our min is 5, which is the function like behavior of hash define. We do not bother with the last 5 at the moment. So this min is basically equivalent to this, which we have already seen in the pre-processed output. What is the problem, you will say? The problem is this. Suppose I replace max by integer, what would happen? Okay, so you see, you get compilation error. You may not know this in a big program. Okay, second problem is far more serious. Okay, let's repeat this. Now we process it again. You see, it blindly replaces the macro with the value. It does not care about whether it is of an appropriate type or not. My I is an integer, but max is double quotient. It blindly replaces. So it causes you a type safety problem. Second problem is that if you try to debug this, then in your code you do not have a max. So you'll keep looking for max, but max is not there. So it causes the second problem, that is while debugging. Now how to get rid of this problem? One way is you can use const int global variable, let's say mx, and assign it to 5. So now we have got a type int, so it is safe to use anywhere you want an int, and it has the same effect as our max. Now what about this function min? This min can be replaced by our inline function, which I have said alpha for the sake of it. So I take two integers as input and return the minimum, and then I print it, which gave our last 5, if you care to remember. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this 5 is input, this is the macro output, and this is the alpha output. Note that you should not include inline functions in the source code itself. It will not work. Say I say this, and then I comment this out, and then I compile this. It will not find the definition of alpha. It must be in the header. The second point is that even if it is in the header, let's and build. Even if it is in the header, it does not find alpha unless you make it extern. Inline functions are somewhat different than normal functions. Inline keyword sends a request to compiler that you try to expand the code inline, but it is a request. It's not like a macro that it will always expand. And you should note that if you try to simulate recursive functions using macros or inline functions, that is not a good idea. Inline functions will never be expanded if you have recursive functions. And macros will try to paste the code, and that may cause you trouble. It may work, it may not work. I strongly recommend against hash defined macros when you try to use them for symbolic constant, or when you try to use them for function like behavior. There are other problems. For example, I say x plus plus y plus plus. Then this will become like this. Let's see over here. Rather, not here. Let's say this is a variable x and this is a variable y, and I say plus plus and then plus plus. Then it will expand like this. Now you see, if x is less than y, then x will be incremented twice, and if y is less than x, then y will be incremented twice. Otherwise, they'll be incremented once. And later, when you try to use them in the program, then you will be surprised about their values. That what happened. This was not my intention. That's a big problem in macros. Hash-defined macros are big no-no in modern C, C++ programming. Earlier, we didn't have inline functions before C99, and we didn't have global consts. So we used to use hash-define. Suppose you do not want to use const, then you can use an enum, and you can say mx is equal to 5. But enums are only integral, while const can be of any type. While const can be of any type. Okay. Right. Okay. Mx. Okay, I already declared mx. And the other error is multiple markers at this line. Okay. Syntax expected comma or okay. So there was a syntax error. So you can say m is equal to 5 in an enum, but enum will represent only your integers, not strings, while you can very safely say const char pointer tr is equal to abcd, and it will work, but enums cannot do this. Therefore, try to avoid hash define as much as you can. Be careful about inline functions, because the reason is if you use inline a lot, then that will expand and your binary size will grow, which may not be needed in certain cases when your system is low on memory. For example, in embedded systems. So use inline with caution. It gives you speed, but it takes up space. So it's a trade-off whether you want speed or space. So that's it for hash define and hash include macros. In our next session, we will learn about conditional compilation. Thanks. Happy coding.